All right, let's talk about the first section of this course, which is navigation. So I'm gonna click on this plus button and then hide the navigation cheat sheet. So I'm gonna go through one by one how these formulas work. Some of them might be familiar to you already because they're more basic, some of them less so. So I'm gonna go into the navigation tab here, which is our experimentation tab for this section of the course. And then we're gonna kind of walk through the formulas or navigation shortcuts for each of them using this tab as an example. So first formula is jumping to the end of an array. And for this is Control plus arrow key. So basically, when we want to jump to the end of, for example, this row here, I can press Control and right arrow key, and that brings me to the order number column of this row. So I go Control left, I go back to cell A1. If I want to jump to the bottom of this column, so the end of column A, then I'll press Control down, and that brings me to the last row of this column, which is cell A245. So pretty simple, and we can just use our Control left, right, up, down keys to just move around like that. All right, next one is switching the tab. So you can see in this workbook, there are different worksheets, and I've been switching between them without using my mouse. So the way that you do this is press Control and page up or page down. And page up will bring you to the previous sheet, page down will bring you to the next sheet. So if you just do this, you can toggle in between sheets as well. And this is just much quicker than just using the mouse. All right, now let's talk about highlighting a row. So here, the shortcut for this is Shift and Spacebar. So if I go back to my sheet 1, let's say I want to highlight row number 4, I'm going to press Shift and Spacebar. That just highlights everything. So pretty quick, and you can do multiple highlights of multiple columns as well if you just click Shift and drag, well, not drag, but like press the down arrow key while pressing Shift. So that just extends the selection. Same thing for highlighting a column, which is Control plus Spacebar. So let's go to the navigation tab again. So let's say I want to highlight column D. I press Control, hold Control, press Spacebar, and voila. And if I want to extend the selection, this highlighting, then I can similarly press and hold Shift, use my right arrow keys to extend right, or use my left arrow keys to extend left. And that's it. Hello and welcome to this course on how to become a superstar analyst on Excel. So I'm just going to give a very quick introduction to how this course is structured and this workbook that I'll be using to guide our lessons throughout this course. So we have a workbook that is available for download. It's the same workbook that you see. So just go to the download section and click into it and follow along if you want to. And this workbook is structured into 2 big sections, and within them they have subsections. So the first big section is the cheat sheet section, which you can see here. So this basically gives you a summary of everything that we're going to go through in this course. There are 5 subsections within this. The second big section is this thing called the sample workbook session. So I'm going to click into it here. And this sample workbook session basically gives you a full example of, if you do Excel analysis, what should this workbook look like? So we're not going to go through this in detail during the course. This is just a template for you to have in your pocket after the course is over. If you want to build your own workbook in the future, you can copy and paste this and use it to start your own workbook. So let's focus on the first big section, which is the cheat sheet section. So there are going to be 5 subsections within this. So first part of this Udemy course is navigation. We're going to teach you how to move quickly and effectively around the Excel workbook, how to jump from one part of the data to the other, etc. Second part is on cleaning, because a big chunk of data analysis is actually getting clean, consistent, well-formatted data, and you've cleaned it in a way that's auditable and easily reversible or modifiable if you need to change anything. So that's data cleaning. And all this is built upon formulas. So there are formulas for these, and I'll tell you as we go into the sections how to use these formulas and what's the best way to actually use them. Third section is on analysis. So here we're basically looking at, sums, averages being the complete basics, all the way through to the more advanced options like your index matches and your pivot tables. And then we have formatting, because a huge part of presenting a good Excel analysis is consistent formatting that people can easily follow. So this is actually super critical, and it's going to be the next focus area. And the last section is around best practices. So there are a lot of things that people kind of miss out on when they build their own workbooks, or things that, makes your life easier, make people's lives easier when they look at your analysis. So these are special tips and tricks which I'll share at the end of the course as well. Okay, and let's say now we want to highlight a row or column and then delete it. So what we're going to do is, let's assume we've highlighted a row or a column already. To delete it, we just press and hold Control, and then we press the minus sign. So pressing these two together deletes that row or column, whatever we've highlighted. It could even be a single cell. So again, let's go to row 2 here. I press Shift and Spacebar to highlight the entire row. And now if I press Control and the minus sign, this row disappears. Let's try it with a column. Let's highlight City column, so column C. I press Control and Spacebar to highlight it, and then now I press Control and minus sign, and the column disappears. So that's a shortcut to deleting stuff quickly. Now, if we want to do the opposite, to insert something, then again, we're going to highlight the row or column that we want to insert something in front of it. And then what we're going to do is, instead of Control and minus sign, we're going to press Control, Shift, and plus sign. So let's give an example here. I go back to my navigation sheet. Let's say now I want to add a row on top of this row 2. So what I'm going to do is I'll highlight this row, row 2, which is Shift and Spacebar again. And then to add a row before this, I press Control, Shift, and the plus sign. And now I have inserted something before that, before row 2. Let's try with the columns. So I go to the end of this column. Let's say I want to insert something before this column I here. So I've highlighted column I, Control and Spacebar. Now I press Control, Shift, and plus sign, and I've added a column in front of order number. Okay. Now, there are multiple ways to do some very common things like deleting and inserting stuff. So what I just showed you was stuff that we press and hold buttons like keys at the same time. So in general, if we see something like a Control key, then these are shortcuts that you have to press and hold together with another key. So like Control Spacebar, Control Plus, Control Shift, stuff like that. The other way to do it would be to use Alt shortcuts. So these are very old shortcuts that were developed by Excel a long time ago. They're more comprehensive, and they also do a huge range of things. So this is actually the main type of shortcuts that we'll use as we go into like data cleaning and analysis and stuff like that. So the Alt shortcuts are super helpful. Now, we can also use Alt shortcuts to insert and delete stuff, rows and columns. So let me show you how this works. And Alt shortcuts, usually we press them one after the other instead of pressing and holding multiple keys at the same time. So to give you an example, if I want to, let's say I want to delete a row, then here I can press Alt to open the Alt menu. I can press H to go to the home menu. So actually it's just a shortcut to say, hey, I want to go to the home tab. And then I can press D to say delete, and R to say delete the row. R stands for row. So let's go to the navigation sheet. And let's say I want to delete this row number 2 that I just added. Now, the beauty of the Alt shortcuts is that you don't have to highlight the row before you say I want to delete it. You just have to be in that row. So let's say now to delete row 2, I go to row 2, I'm somewhere inside row 2. I can be in cell A2, it can be in cell D2. I press Alt, this opens up the Alt shortcut menu. I press H, which brings me to home. I press D to say, hey, I want to delete something. And then here you can see actually, hey, there's a whole drop down menu that you can select it from. So you just have to remember like the first couple of keystrokes, and then you can see the menu to choose down from. But I'm very familiar with this, so I say, okay, I know immediately that deleting a row is R. So let's say I want to delete R, and voila, it's gone. So we can do this really quickly if we're familiar with it. We just think, oh, okay, if I want to delete this column, I'm somewhere in column I. To delete it, I'm going to go Alt HDC. So Alt Home Delete Column. Done. So same thing for adding a row or column. Instead of saying D for delete, we're going to use I for insert. So insert a row, Alt HIR, and insert a column, Alt HIC. So super quick. So this is really helpful. And there's one more thing that you can insert and delete with the Alt shortcuts that you can't do with the Control shortcuts. And this is inserting and deleting sheets. Now, this one you have to be careful with, because if you insert or delete sheets, you cannot undo it. So pressing Ctrl Z will not undo it. So be careful with this. And I'm going to demonstrate to you now. So if I want to insert a sheet, then it's Alt HIS, stands for sheet. So I'm going to do that here, Alt HIS. Voila, I've inserted a new sheet. And if I want to delete this sheet, I just have to be somewhere inside the sheet, and I press Alt HDS. And you can't undo this. So if I press Ctrl Z, nothing happens. Okay, now another really useful function is to move and copy sheets. So let's say I want to make a copy of this sheet number 1. What I can do is Alt HOM. So pressing Alt HOM basically gives me this move or copy function. So let's say I want to move my navigation sheet further back. I want to move it behind number 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move it to, let's say, here. Voila. So what I've done, if I replay that in a bit, is basically I go Alt HOM, I select where I want to insert it. So if I click OK on this like sheet number 3, it's going to insert my current sheet, which I'm on, sheet 1, before sheet number 3. So that's what I just did. So another example, if I want to move it back in front of sheet 2, I'm just going to go up, click OK here, and it moves it back in front of sheet 2. So that's what the Alt HOM move function does. I can create a copy of the sheet as well. So this is useful if you have like a data sheet, a sheet of data that you don't want to modify. You don't want to make direct edits to this data. So you always make a copy of that data before messing around with it. So let's say I want to do that, Alt HOM. And instead of saying I want to move it, I want to say I create a copy. So you can click on this checkbox. That's one method. The method without the mouse is you can press Alt and hold C, because here you can see this C is underlined, which means that you can actually use a keyboard shortcut to access it. So if you don't like using a mouse, you just go to this Alt HOM screen, hold down Alt and C to select create a copy. And then I can, same thing, choose where this copy sheet goes. So let's say I want to create a copy and I want to insert this copy sheet before sheet 3. Then I click enter. Now I've got this navigation sheet and a copy of this navigation sheet that was inserted before sheet 3. Now that's it. I don't like this duplicate, so I'm going to delete it. So Alt HDS, delete the sheet. Yes, done. Okay. Now another really useful function is to move and copy sheets. So let's say I want to make a copy of this sheet number 1. What I can do is Alt HOM. So pressing Alt HOM basically gives me this move or copy function. So let's say I want to move my navigation sheet further back. I want to move it behind number 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move it to, let's say, here. Voila. So what I've done, if I replay that in a bit, is basically I go Alt-H-O-M, I select where I want to insert it. So if I click OK on this like sheet number 3, it's going to insert my current sheet, which I'm on, sheet 1, before sheet number 3. So that's what I just did. So another example, if I want to move it back in front of sheet 2, I'm just going to go up, click OK here, and it moves it back in front of sheet 2. So that's what the Alt-H-O-M move function does. I can create a copy of the sheet as well. So this is useful if you have like a data sheet, a sheet of data that you don't want to modify. You don't want to make direct edits to this data. So you always make a copy of that data before messing around with it. So let's say I want to do that Alt-H-O-M. And instead of saying I want to move it, I want to say I create a copy. So you can click on this checkbox. That's one method. The method without the mouse is you can press Alt and hold C, because here you can see this C is underlined, which means that you can actually use a keyboard shortcut to access it. So if you don't like using a mouse, you just go to this Alt-H-O-M screen, hold down Alt and C to select create a copy. And then I can, same thing, choose where this copy sheet goes. So let's say I want to create a copy and I want to insert this copy sheet before sheet 3. Then I click enter. Now I've got this navigation sheet and a copy of this navigation sheet that was inserted before sheet 3. Now that's it. I don't like this duplicate, so I'm going to delete it. So Alt-HD-S, delete the sheet. Yes, done.